Has this happened to you in the past? You're in your Corvette, you've got your monogrammed polo on, your jean shorts, you're with your second or third trophy wife, and you're on your way to the latest lawn chair show, and then this happens. Well, let's fix that.
Welcome back to the laboratory. We're going to get started on our Corvette project by fixing the starter. Now, you might think, hey, I'm a Corvette owner, this Corvette doesn't start, so you just get another Corvette that does start. I'm not that kind of Corvette owner. You might also think, well, I'm a Corvette owner, I'll just buy a whole nother starter. I'm not really a Corvette owner, I'm a transitional owner, let's call it that. So the starter doesn't start the engine, but the starter spins. Okay, so we know the solenoid is good. We also know that the main starter motor itself is good, but what's happening is it's not engaging the ring gear to start the engine. So either the ring gear is missing a bunch of teeth, or the pinion gear on the starter is missing a bunch of teeth, or the starter drive itself is faulty. And I've been through this before. Chances are it's the starter drive. So we're going to pull the starter out, take it apart, put in a nice affordable $11 Canadian. You can't buy anything for $11 Canadian. Rebuilt starter drive, stick it back in there, and we're going to have a Corvette running on a Corvair budget. So step one, always disconnect the battery. Step zero, find the battery. All right, battery's got to be under here somewhere, so we'll have a look. No. Battery, no. Battery, no. Okay, so a battery isn't under here somewhere. These cars are so foreign to me, so I had to look this up. Turns out, they hide the battery inside, behind the driver's seat, in this little cubby hole, where, well, looks like I already disconnected the battery and forgot about it. Okay, so that's done. So now, at this point, we can get the starter out. And while we're at it, let's get the funk out too. All right, so we got the starter out, we got it on the workbench. Probably really hard to see, I couldn't really get the video camera in there, but to disconnect all the wiring, you've got the main power here, and then you've got the two tiny connections here, and then we had an extra ground on here because Corvette fiberglass. So we need to pull the thing apart. Here's our $11. Unbelievable. Rebuilt starter drive, rebuilt by Wilson Electric right here in Winnipeg. But to get this thing in there, we basically need to take the whole thing apart. So we're going to start with this. Okay, so this is the main power from the solenoid into the motor. Okay, and then we need to pull the solenoid off. And for some reason, on this particular starter, it's got different size bolts on it. And it's been so long since I've rebuilt a GM starter, I can't remember if it's supposed to be like that or if somebody's been messing with this starter and lost the proper bolt or stripped something out. Okay, now to get the solenoid out, there's a little tab here that slides into the main housing, so we just need to rotate that thing like that, and then out it comes. Okay, so out of the way, spring out of the way, and now we need to remove the main housing. So we've got two bolts at this end, which are conveniently that size. bushing that's in the end cap here. See that it's not horribly worn out, but we'll put a bit more lube on there when we put it back together. We'll check our brushes here too, and see what kind of shape they're in. There's lots of meat left on them, so they all look good. And at this point, we're going to start separating this thing. I'm not sure which camera angle is going to be the best to do this, so we'll just go this way. Okay, so at this point, you may be able to see there's our starter drive in there. So this pivot needs to come off, and then we should be able to slide that thing out. So that's okay, and with that, the fork can out, and then pull this thing out. So there's our old starter drive. Here's our new one. And the retaining ring on the end here that we're going to have to pop off so that we can slide this thing off the end and then slide our new one on.
All right, we had to change workbenches for a second because that other table is not good for hammering on, so we're on a proper workbench. But now to get this retainer off, so we'll take the top thrust side off, and then believe it or not, the shop manual actually says to use a 1/2-inch pipe coupling on this and tap it down like that. Okay, and that gives you then access to the snap ring, which if I had my snap ring pliers handy, we could get in there and split that. So let's go get those. All right, there's our snap ring pliers. And this is being about as cooperative as any snap ring has ever been in the history of humanity. Even with the proper tool, it doesn't want to come off. So we might have to cut this and come back when I get this thing off. Okay. Let's do that. All right, after much swearing, probably invented some new swear words. We got the snap ring out of the groove, so I'm just going to slide it the rest of the way off the shaft. And then we can pull, there's fancy names for these things, I can't remember what it is. But anyway, at this point, we can pull the old starter drive off. This is also known as Bendix. And of course, we want to make sure that our replacement part is a replacement part, and it looks like everything's exactly the same here. Gear teeth look a little bit better. This one's like well used, and you'll notice like this is a one-way clutch, so that way it locks up, this way it freewheels, so that when this starts cranking the engine and when the engine starts firing, then it'll just override, but you can see that this one's well worn. Okay, so before we put this thing on, we're going to put some lithium grease on here, which I forgot to get. Okay, so here's our lithium grease, and let's see if we can get the little straw thing to work. I'm really good at shooting these straws across the shop. Slides on like that. Okay, and then this slides down, and now let's see if we get the snapper back on the shaft without a hammer. Well, yeah, there it goes. Okay, into the groove. We're going to pull this thing up, and there's actually a procedure for doing this as well. So you squeeze these together to get the snap ring inside of this thing and into the groove. So let me go grab another couple pair of pliers. slide that down like that. And then, let's see if I can do it with the needle nose. There we go. Oh, not quite. Not quite all the way yet. There we go. Okay, so snap ring is back in its happy place. This goes back on. We'll lube that up with some lithium grease. And now we can slide this thing back into the housing. And before we do that, let's put this thing on and gain some more grease. Fortunately, I'm getting it all over the tools and everything else, but now this is sticking to the magnet. Okay, and our bolt goes through. Somehow, totally missed the bolt. All right, let's cut and do the second take. There we go. Okay, that's how we got it. Okay, so at this point, we've got to spread all of the brushes. These brushes are all spring loaded, so we've got to spread them apart so we can get the rotor. And this is where you've got 4 brushes. There we go. Okay, so we want to make sure that we've got this thing oriented the right way, which we don't. Rotate it around until it's got a dowel that locks into that housing. We're going to grease up this end here again, and I can't remember the orientation of that thing now. So, okay, there's one of the bolt holes there. Okay, and from here, you probably get the idea. Just reverse what we did to disassemble the starter, and then we'll jam it back in the car. Okay, again, we need to, first of all, get the plunger to fit in the solenoid, and then we're going to compress that spring, and then we're going to rotate this tab into that slot and line that thing up there. And then I guess we could put this bolt in first so we know everything's aligned properly. If you notice my ratchet's not making noise, it's not broken. This is a, what is this thing called? A 0-degree ratchet. So it's just got a one-way clutch in there. It doesn't actually have a sprag. So it doesn't have like a minimum amount of turn that you need before it clicks, which is great if you're in some really, really tight area where you can only move the thing like a tiny amount. Every little amount turns that thing. It's really cool. Okay, so tighten up our last bolt here. At this point, I'll stick it back in the car and hope for the best. Let's see how it goes. All right, let's see how we did. 1 out of 1. 2 out of 2, 3 out of 3, 4 out of 4. I think we've got it fixed. All right, so we got it to start. Well, I mean, it's not running, but the engine will run. So the next thing is to get it to stop. I got a brake hose that I got to replace. I don't know if that's worth a video or not, but anyway, if you watched this long, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all of the usual stuff. And as always, be kind, be humble. We'll see you next time. And then this happens. Of course, when the camera is rolling, it works perfectly. And then this happens. And then this happens. And then this happens. And then this happens.